Welcome to the channel for another exciting video. Most people who watch our videos are not subscribed, so I kindly ask you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new content. Your like is essential for YouTube to understand that this content is relevant, so please like, share, and leave your comment. Now, let's get to the story. The soft light of dawn filtered through the imposing, century-old oaks surrounding Blackwood Memorial Park, creating a spectacle of dancing shadows on the ground. Amelia, a passionate yoga instructor, was in her usual spot in the park's quietest clearing. The fresh morning air brought with it the scent of wet grass and the cheerful chirping of birds beginning to wake. With a serene smile, she settled onto her yoga mat, preparing for another meditation session. "Come on, Baxter," she said, looking at her faithful dog, who was lying beside her. The golden retriever wagged his tail, as if he knew this moment was sacred. Amelia closed her eyes, breathing deeply, feeling the energy of nature enveloping her. It was her morning ritual, a moment of connection with the world and herself. After a few minutes of meditation, Amelia began to flow into her yoga poses, moving with grace and tranquility. The sun, slowly rising on the horizon, warmed her face, and the gentle breeze wrapped around her, bringing a sense of peace and renewal. As she focused on her balance, Baxter attentively watched the surroundings, always alert, as if he sensed something that escaped his owner's perception. Suddenly, Baxter's behavior changed. The dog abruptly stood up, staring intently at a solitary tree a few meters from where Amelia was. He began to approach it, his tail wagging frantically and an anxious bark escaping his mouth. "What is it, my friend?" Amelia asked, interrupting her practice and getting up to follow him. "What did you find?" Baxter continued to dig with his front paws, his excitement growing by the moment. Amelia approached and crouched down beside him, curious. "Let's see what's there," she said as she joined the dog in the search. With a bit of effort, Baxter's paws soon uncovered an old bag, partially buried under the damp soil. Amelia hesitated for a moment, a chill running down her spine. "What could this be?" she murmured to herself. Carefully, she pulled the bag from the ground. It was worn with age, with stains and scratches, but still intact. Amelia's heart raced as she unbuttoned the bag and opened it. Inside, she found a faded photo of a smiling girl with a dog that looked very much like Baxter. Next to the photo was a yellowed note that read, "The truth is buried in the park." Amelia felt a shiver run down her spine. "Who is this girl, Baxter?" She looked at the dog, who was gazing at her with bright eyes, as if he were just as intrigued as she was. "Let's investigate, shall we?" Amelia took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline begin to pulse through her veins. The image of the girl and the enigmatic phrase on the note filled her with an unsettling curiosity. She tucked the photo and the note into the bag, determined to discover more about the story behind this unexpected find. "Come on, Baxter, we have a mystery to solve," she said, standing up with a smile mixed with excitement and slight apprehension. The day promised much more than just a simple yoga sunrise. Amelia sat at the kitchen table, her trembling hands holding the faded photo she had found in the buried bag. The smiling face of Emily seemed to vibrate with a life that had been interrupted over 2 decades ago. Beside her, Baxter, her faithful companion, rested with his head on his front paws, as if sensing the weight of the moment. "Who were you, little girl?" Amelia murmured, looking at the dog. He lifted his head and barked softly, as if trying to comfort her. Determined to unravel the mystery, Amelia decided she needed to know more about Emily. After a few moments of hesitation, she grabbed her laptop and began to search. The screen lit up her face as she typed, "Emily Blackwood disappearance." The first page of results brought up a series of old articles and reports that seemed to tell a tragic story still echoing in the town. "Wow, this is more serious than I thought," Amelia said, reading the headlines about the case aloud. "She disappeared when she was only 8 years old, and the last sighting was in the park where I do yoga." A chill ran down her spine, and she wondered if there was something more that connected her to that girl. Amelia decided she needed help. She remembered Jessica, a childhood friend who was now an investigative reporter in a neighboring town. Despite the rivalry that had always existed between them, the urgency of the case made her seek out contact. With a bit of hesitation, she called the number she had saved for years. "Hello, Jessica. It's Amelia. "We need to talk," she said, trying to hide the anxiety in her voice. "Amelia? What's going on? It's been so long since I've talked to you," Jessica replied, a bit surprised. "What's happening?" "I found something in the park, something related to Emily's disappearance. I need your help," Amelia said, her voice trembling. There was a pause. "Emily, the girl who disappeared over 20 years ago. Do you really think you can find anything?" "I don't know, but I need to try. Can we meet? I have some leads that might be important," Amelia insisted, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. Canceling appointments, the two met at a local cafe where the smell of coffee and the buzz of conversations created a familiar yet tense atmosphere. Jessica arrived with a skeptical look, her brows furrowed as she observed Amelia. "So, what did you find?" Jessica asked, crossing her arms. Amelia showed the photo of Emily, the note that mentioned the truth buried in the park, and the other items she had discovered. "I feel like there's something more here. Baxter, my dog, seems to know something. He keeps leading me to places in the park." Jessica examined the photo, her eyes softening. She was so beautiful. "And are you sure this isn't just a coincidence?" "The park is big, Amelia." "I know, but something tells me we should investigate. Let's look in the city's historical archives. There might be something that no one has ever noticed," Amelia suggested, determination growing inside her. Jessica sighed, seeming reluctant, but then nodded. "All right, let's do this. Even though I still have my doubts, I can't ignore the possibility that you might be right." The two decided they would go to the town hall, where they kept old documents about missing persons cases. As they walked, Amelia couldn't help but notice there was a palpable tension between them, a rivalry that had lingered since childhood. But at that moment, the memories of the past were overshadowed by the urgency to find the truth about Emily. "Do you remember when we were kids and used to play hide-and-seek in the park?" Jessica asked, breaking the silence. "It was so different back then." Amelia smiled slightly. "Yes, and everything seemed simpler. But now, it feels like the park holds so many secrets." "Let's figure out what happened," Jessica declared, determination rising in her voice. Thus, the two women, united by a mystery and an unresolved story, made their way to the office, each aware that what they found could change not only their lives, but also the history of the town of Blackwood. Amelia was walking through Blackwood Memorial Park, her bare feet touching the soft grass as the sun slowly rose on the horizon. The fresh morning air was invigorating, and the tranquility of the park always helped her find her center. Baxter, her loyal dog, followed closely, sniffing the ground attentively. However, the calm was interrupted when Baxter began barking and digging frantically in a secluded corner of the park, near an old tree. "Baxter, what are you doing?" Amelia asked, leaning down to see what the dog had found. Baxter's excitement was contagious, and Amelia couldn't help but wonder if he had discovered something important. The dog's insistent barking echoed among the oaks, and her curiosity led her to join him. With her hands, she began to help Baxter, removing the dirt that had accumulated around an object. After a few minutes of effort, her hands touched something hard, and soon the top of an old bag was revealed. "What is this?" Amelia murmured, pulling the bag out of the hole. It was covered in dirt, but she could still see it was made of worn leather. As she opened the bag, her heart raced. Inside, there was a faded photo of a girl with wavy hair, holding a dog that looked very much like Baxter. Next to the photo, a yellowed note read, "The truth buried in the park." The mention of the truth sent a chill down Amelia's spine. "Who is this girl, Baxter? Do you know?" she asked, looking at her dog, who seemed just as intrigued as she was. Amelia felt a wave of determination. This mystery needed to be unraveled. In her mind, the image of the girl became clearer, as if she were asking for help. With the bag in one hand and the photo in the other, Amelia decided she needed to find out more about this child and what had happened to her. In the following days, Amelia dove into research about the girl in the photo. She spent hours at the local library, rummaging through old newspapers and files. After several visits, she found a newspaper clipping that talked about the disappearance of Emily, a girl who had vanished in Blackwood over 20 years ago. The article mentioned a dog that had tried to protect the girl, and Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that Baxter had a special role in this story. "I need to talk to someone who remembers Emily," Amelia said to herself as she looked around the library. "Maybe Jessica can help me." Jessica, her childhood friend, was now an investigative reporter in a neighboring town. They had a tense relationship, but Amelia knew she would need all the help she could get. With her heart racing, Amelia grabbed her phone and called. "Hi, Jessica. It's Amelia. I need help," she said hesitantly. "I'm investigating the disappearance of a girl named Emily. Do you remember her?" Jessica's voice on the other end was filled with surprise. "Amelia? You're talking about the Emily who disappeared years ago? What brought this on?" "I found a bag in the park and some clues. I need to know more." "Could you come over?" Amelia asked, trying to hide the nervousness in her voice. "Of course, but only because you're my friend. And I hope this isn't just another one of your wild theories," Jessica replied, the distrust evident in her tone. While waiting for Jessica, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. With every step she took, she felt as if she was being followed. When she finally got home, suspicion turned into fear. The door was ajar, and papers were scattered across the floor. "Baxter, stay here," she whispered as she moved cautiously through the house. Adrenaline surged through her body. "What is happening?" Amelia murmured, anticipating what could have occurred. Emily's mystery was becoming much more dangerous than she had ever imagined. She needed to uncover the truth, and fast. Amelia followed Baxter with her heart racing as they walked toward a secluded lake, hidden among the tall trees of Blackwood Memorial Park. The soft sound of the water moving and the birds singing in the background created a peaceful atmosphere, but Amelia's intuition told her that something important was about to be revealed. Baxter, with his golden fur shining in the sunlight, seemed more excited than ever, pulling his guide forward with contagious enthusiasm. "Calm down, Baxter. Where are you taking me?" Amelia asked, trying to keep up with the dog's quick pace. He stopped abruptly, his nose buried in the soft earth near a moss-covered rock. Barking insistently, he continued to dig, his paws lifting small clumps of dirt as Amelia watched, intrigued. "Did you find something, boy?" she said, kneeling beside him and starting to dig with her hands. Her heart raced with a feeling that the discovery could be significant. After a few minutes of work, her hands touched something hard and metallic. With one final push, Amelia pulled a rusty box from the hole. The box was covered in moss, and the metal had a dull sheen that spoke of many years buried. "Let's see what's inside," Amelia murmured, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. She remembered the key she had found earlier, and the thought that the box might contain clues about Emily made her even more excited. With trembling hands, she took the key from her pocket and inserted it into the rusty lock. The mechanism creaked, and with a click, the box opened. Inside, there was a collection of items that seemed to belong to a child: a faded rag doll, a colorful beaded bracelet, and, more importantly, a yellowed letter. Amelia held the letter carefully, her heart racing as she unrolled the paper. "Are you okay, Baxter?" she asked, noticing that the dog remained by her side, attentive, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. The handwriting on the letter was delicate and a bit shaky, as if it had been written by a girl. "Dear reader," it began. "If you are reading this, it means I couldn't get out of the park. I'm running away from someone who hurts me. I'm scared, but I need to find a way to stay safe." Emily's words leaped from the page and touched Amelia's heart. She felt a deep connection with the girl who had disappeared. "Oh my God, Baxter," Amelia said, her eyes brimming with tears. She was trying to escape something terrible. The dog barked softly, as if he understood the gravity of the situation. Amelia continued reading, absorbing every word. "If anyone finds my toys, please tell my mom that I love her and that I'm trying to come home." Amelia felt a knot form in her throat. She was trapped here, and no one noticed. With a heavy heart, she looked at Baxter, who gazed at her with an unwavering expression of loyalty. "You have an important role in all of this, you know? You found her." Baxter seemed to understand, wagging his tail and stepping closer to Amelia. "Let's take this to the authorities, Baxter," she said, already getting to her feet. "We need to make sure the truth about Emily is told. No one else should suffer like this." With the letter and Emily's belongings carefully stowed away, Amelia made her way back, feeling a mix of sadness and determination. The discovery was an important step, but the mission was far from over. The revelations about Emily's past were now becoming part of her own story, and Amelia was willing to fight for justice, not just for the lost girl, but for all the voices that had been silenced in Blackwood. Amelia was sitting at the kitchen table, with the items she had found at the lake laid out before her. The afternoon light filtered through the window, illuminating Emily's letter and the small objects that now carried immense emotional weight. Jessica entered, bringing with her an air of determination. "You won't believe what I found," Jessica said as she sat down at the table. "I found some old files at the library." Emily's family was involved in a scandal that shook the town at the time of her disappearance. Amelia looked up, intrigued. A scandal? What kind of scandal? A fight over the family inheritance. Emily's father, it seems, was in a troubled relationship with a cousin, and there were disputes over the property. This could have created enough tension for someone to want to silence her. Amelia shook her head, absorbing the information. "This is much more complicated than I imagined. If the family was in conflict, it could have affected Emily in ways we can't even imagine." Jessica picked up the letter and read it aloud. She mentioned someone who was chasing her. It's as if she knew she was in danger. "We need to take this to the police immediately." "Yes, but will they really care? They already filed the case as a common disappearance," Amelia replied, her expression worried. "When the town has its own shadows. I don't trust that they are willing to investigate thoroughly." "We need to be persistent," Jessica asserted, determined. "If Emily's family history is linked to what happened, we have a chance to reopen the case. Let's talk to the detective who was in charge of the original investigations." Amelia nodded, adrenaline beginning to flow through her veins. "Let's do this. If the community knows what really happened, maybe we can finally bring to light the truth that was buried along with Emily." The two women went to the police station, where they found Detective Thompson, a middle-aged man with a skeptical expression. He listened intently as Amelia presented the new evidence. "Look, this is all very interesting, but it's been over 2 decades, Thompson said, raising an eyebrow. "Police resources are limited, and old cases like this rarely take priority. But this could change everything," Jessica interjected, determined. "If Emily's family was involved in something bigger, it might explain her disappearance. We need you to reopen the investigation and look into these new leads." Thompson sighed, reluctant. "I'll be honest with you. Most residents want to forget what happened. They just want to live in peace. However, I will take another look at the files, but I can't promise anything." Amelia felt a wave of frustration but also a small spark of hope. "That's all we ask for. Just a chance to uncover the truth." As they left the police station, Jessica looked at Amelia and said, "We did what we could. Now we just have to wait." "Yes, but we can't stop here," Amelia replied, determined. "If the police won't act, we will continue the investigation on our own. We can't let Emily be forgotten again." In the following days, the two women immersed themselves in old files and records. They discovered more about Emily's life, the friendship they shared, and the dreams she had. An emotional connection formed between them as each new piece of information revealed more about Blackwood's dark past. "Look at this," Jessica said, pointing to a yellowed newspaper clipping. "This article mentions a sighting of Emily near the park days before her disappearance." Amelia frowned, feeling they were getting closer to an important revelation. "We need to visit the place where the sighting occurred. It could be the key to understanding what really happened." Jessica agreed, her determination renewed. "Let's go. It's time to bring to light what has been kept in the shadows for too long." The two were determined to move forward, increasingly united in the pursuit of the truth, as the shadow of the past grew more intense. Amelia and Jessica were in a roadside cafe, the lights of the nearby city flickering in the background while the aroma of fresh coffee hung in the air. Both were immersed in a heated conversation, their voices low but intense. "We have to follow up on this tip. If what they're saying is true, it could be the key to solving the mystery of Emily's disappearance," Jessica said, determination visible in her eyes. "I agree, but we need to be cautious. If this man really has something to do with what happened, he may not like being sought out," Amelia replied, gripping the coffee cup in her hands. Baxter, her loyal dog, lay at her feet, raising his head occasionally as if sensing the tension in the air. After discussing their strategy, the two decided to follow the lead pointing to a man who had been seen around the park on the night Emily disappeared. His name was Henry, and the reports were not good. Henry's reputation as a troubled individual preceded him, and both knew that the investigation could be risky. The road to the abandoned cabin was narrow and lined with tall trees that seemed to whisper stories of the past. The atmosphere was heavy, and Amelia felt a knot in her stomach as they approached the location. "Are you sure we should do this?" Amelia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, we need to know. If he is involved, we need to gather evidence," Jessica replied, with a firmness that tried to convey confidence. When they arrived at the cabin, the scene was desolate. The windows were broken, and the wood creaked under the weight of time. Amelia looked around, her hair blowing in the breeze. "Baxter, stay close to me," she ordered, her heart racing with the anticipation of what she might find. The dog, as if understanding the gravity of the situation, remained alert, his muscles tense and ready to act. They approached the front door, which was slightly ajar. "Let's go, but carefully," Jessica whispered, slowly pulling the door open. The interior of the cabin was dark, with daylight barely penetrating through the cracks. The smell of mold and old wood was strong. Amelia and Jessica entered, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the silence. "This feels like a trap," Amelia murmured, looking around. "We need to check. What we find here could be crucial," Jessica insisted, moving toward the main room. As they explored, Baxter began to growl softly. "What is it, Baxter?" Amelia asked, concerned. The dog moved toward a door leading to a basement. "I think he sensed something," Jessica said. Looking down, "There must be something down there." Amelia hesitated, but curiosity and the need for answers pushed her forward. "Let's go down," she decided, determined. The stairs creaked under their feet, and the darkness grew more intense with each step. Upon reaching the bottom, they found a dusty space filled with boxes and furniture covered in white sheets. "Henry," Jessica called, her voice echoing in the space. "If you're here, we need to talk." From the back of the room, a shadow moved, and a worn-looking man appeared. "What are you two doing here?" His voice was rough, and his eyes were filled with suspicion. "We're investigating Emily's disappearance," Amelia replied, trying to stay calm. "We know you were here that night." The man stepped forward, his gaze challenging. "That's none of your business. Emily is not here, and they won't find her." Then, in a fraction of a second, the tension transformed into an electrically charged atmosphere. Amelia felt her heart race as the man approached, his eyes fixed on her. "I suggest you leave before you regret it," he said, the implicit threat in his voice. "We are here to help, Henry," Jessica quickly intervened, keeping her voice steady. "If you know anything, now is the time to speak." "There's nothing to be said," he replied, already backing away. But Amelia noticed a movement in his pocket. A shiny object glinted in the dim light. Fear coursed through her veins, and without thinking, she took a step back. "Come on, Jessica." Amelia pulled her friend and started to retreat, realizing the situation was becoming dangerous. Henry's gaze followed them, a mix of anger and desperation on his face. As they quickly ascended the stairs, Baxter growled fiercely, as if sensing that the tension was about to explode. At that moment, Amelia realized they were getting closer to the truth, but the path ahead would be fraught with dangers. Amelia and Jessica regrouped at a local cafe, their faces marked by tension and determination. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden light over the city of Blackwood, but neither of them felt inspired by the beauty of the moment. They had a plan in mind, and time was running out. "We need more evidence against that man," Amelia said, her eyes fixed on an old photo that Jessica had brought. "If he was really in town at the time of Emily's disappearance, we need to make sure the police takes him seriously." Jessica nodded, her expression intensifying. "I made some calls. A witness remembered seeing him near the park when Emily disappeared. If we can get her to speak with the police, it could change the situation." "Great. Let's find her," Amelia replied, already getting up from the table. Baxter, who had been lying at Amelia's feet, lifted his head, sensing the movement. He seemed to feel the urgency in the air. The two women made their way to the witness's address, an elderly woman named Doris, who lived on the outskirts of town. The walk there was silent, each of their minds filled with thoughts about what they might find. Upon arrival, they found Doris sitting in a rocking chair on the porch, staring blankly into space. "Sorry to bother you, Mrs. Doris," Amelia began, a mix of respect and nervousness in her voice. "We're investigating Emily's disappearance. Can you help us?" Doris slowly turned her head, her tired blue eyes alert but weary. "Emily? The girl who disappeared? So many years have passed." A shadow of sadness crossed her face. "Yes. We believe you may have seen something important," Jessica said, leaning slightly forward. "Do you remember a suspicious man who might have been with her?" The elderly woman let out a deep sigh. "There was a man. He always walked through the woods near the park. I saw him talking to children. The last time I saw him was the day Emily went missing. She was with a dog. One that looked a lot like this one," she said, pointing to Baxter, who was beside Amelia, watching attentively. "Do you remember what he looked like?" Amelia asked, anxiety rising in her chest. "He had a dark jacket and a strange look. I remember feeling a chill when I saw him. He was very close to the lake," Doris said, her voice trembling. "If I had known something would happen, I would have done more." Doris's words echoed in Amelia and Jessica's minds. They had a concrete lead, but they still needed more evidence. "Would you mind speaking with the police?" Jessica asked, determined. "I don't know if I want to get involved," Doris replied hesitantly. "These things can bring trouble. We need the truth to come to light, Mrs. Doris," Amelia insisted, holding the woman's hand. "Emily deserves her story to be told, and you can help give her a voice." Doris looked at Baxter, who was beside her, as if sensing the connection. "All right, I will talk to the police. But you should be aware of the risks." With Doris's promise in mind, Amelia and Jessica headed to the police station. The atmosphere was tense, and Sergeant Williams, a weary-looking man, was reluctant to hear what they had to say. "We're here with new evidence about Emily's case," Jessica said firmly. "The witness we just found can confirm that a suspicious man was in the area on the day of the disappearance." Williams crossed his arms, raising an eyebrow. "And are you sure this witness isn't just recalling something she's heard around?" Amelia intervened, her heart racing. "She's not just any witness. Mrs. Doris saw the man and can describe what happened. We need you to listen to her." The sergeant hesitated, but Amelia's determined look and the urgency in her voice made him reconsider. "All right, take me to her. If she really has information, it's our duty to investigate." As they headed back to Doris's house, Amelia felt a wave of hope. They were closer to the truth, and with each step, the weight of the past felt a little lighter. Baxter, by her side, seemed to understand the significance of the moment, as if he was about to reveal a secret that had been hidden for too long. The sun began to set over Blackwood, casting a golden light filtering through the leaves of the ancient oaks. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of relief and sadness as the authorities finally gathered to present the results of the investigation that Amelia and Jessica had conducted. The park, which had once been a place of meditation and tranquility for Amelia, was now imbued with an emotional weight that everyone present could feel. Amelia looked around, sensing the gaze of many townspeople. They had gathered to hear what the authorities had to say about Emily's case. The sheriff, a weary-looking man marked by life, stepped up to the small, makeshift podium. His hands trembled slightly as he held the microphone, but the determination in his eyes was undeniable. "Thank you all for being here today," the sheriff began, his voice echoing through the park. "After the investigation led by Amelia and Jessica, we have managed to clarify what happened to Emily Rodriguez." He paused, searching for the right words. Emily did not just disappear. She escaped from a horrific situation. Unfortunately, an accident in the park prevented her from escaping. A murmur grew among the crowd, and Amelia felt her heart tighten. Beside her, Jessica squeezed her hand, as if wanting to convey strength. She was not just fleeing. She was fighting to break free from a nightmare. The sheriff continued. Emily's family actually faced a history of abuse that had been silenced for far too long. Our investigations revealed that she hid in the park, but an unfortunate accident led to her death. A woman in the crowd began to cry, and the sound of her pain seemed to resonate with everyone present. Amelia looked at Emily's mother, who was in a corner, her eyes fixed on the ground as if trying to absorb the reality. The sheriff then gestured for her to come forward. "This is a story that needs to be told," he said, addressing Emily's mother. "We want you to know that it was not in vain. Your daughter has been remembered, and her story will be honored." Amelia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her own emotions as she watched the woman approach. "Thank you for bringing this to light," Emily's mother said, her voice trembling. "I always knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how to find the answers. Now, I finally know what happened to my daughter." The sheriff nodded. "We are committed to ensuring that the truth is never buried again. From now on, we will make sure that the story of Emily and so many other missing children is remembered and respected." In a moment of solidarity, the crowd began to applaud, and Amelia, moved, felt that something inside her had changed. It was as if the weight she carried had dissipated, even as a new sense of responsibility emerged. "We need to do something for her," Jessica whispered, her voice laden with emotion. "We need to ensure that Emily's memory lives on." The proposal resonated among the townspeople. "Let's create a memorial," someone in the crowd suggested. "A place of remembrance and hope, where the stories of missing children can be told." Amelia smiled upon hearing this, feeling warmth in her heart. "Yes, a memorial," she repeated, looking at Emily's mother, who now had tears in her eyes but a faint smile on her face. "It's the least we can do." And so, the ceremony transformed into a moment of unity, where pain mingled with hope. People began to gather to discuss how they could honor the memory of Emily and all the children who, like her, had been forgotten. Amelia felt that despite the tragedy, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, a new beginning that could arise from the pain. And, looking at Baxter, her faithful companion, she realized that love and courage could truly make a difference. With Emily's case finally resolved, Amelia felt a mix of relief and nostalgia as she walked through Blackwood Memorial Park. The sun shone gently through the leaves of the trees, creating a play of light and shadow dancing around her. It was a new beginning, not just for the town but for her as well, who had reconnected with her purpose. The park now resonated with Emily's memory, and Amelia decided it was time to give something back to the community that had embraced her. "Today we are going to do something special," Amelia announced to the few students who were gathering in a circle around her. They looked at her with curiosity, their faces illuminated by the morning light. "From now on, yoga classes will be free and open to everyone here in this park. I want this place to continue to be a space of peace and reflection, where we can remember not just Emily, but all the lives that have touched this place." The students applauded, and a sense of community blossomed among them. Baxter, her faithful companion, seemed to understand the importance of the moment, wagging his tail and moving closer to Amelia. He had always been more than a dog. He was her guardian, her friend, and now, a symbol of hope. During the class, the gentle breeze brushed against Amelia's face as she guided the students through the postures. "Breathe deeply. Feel the connection with the earth beneath your feet," she said, her calm voice echoing among the trees. "It is here that we find our strength and serenity. It is here that we honor those who came before us." After the class, as the students dispersed, Baxter pulled Amelia toward an old viewpoint that she knew well. "What is it, boy?" she asked, following him. He stopped in front of a small path covered with dry leaves, looking back with an air of determination. "You always know where to go." Amelia smiled, feeling grateful for his presence. When they reached the viewpoint, a stunning view opened up before them. The park, with its lush tree canopies, extending as far as the eye could see. However, what caught Amelia's attention was an object partially buried in the ground of the viewpoint. Curious, she crouched down and began to clear the dirt. To her surprise, it was a letter, yellowed and worn by time. "Baxter, look at this," she exclaimed, holding the letter carefully. The dog approached, sniffing the paper with interest. With her hands trembling slightly, Amelia opened the letter and began to read aloud. "Dear reader, if you have found this letter, it means that somehow, my story still lives. I dream of being remembered, not as a girl who disappeared, but as a child full of hopes and dreams. One day, I hope someone will tell my truth." Amelia's voice faltered slightly as emotion enveloped her. She had so many dreams," she murmured, feeling the weight of the words. She didn't deserve what happened. "Who are you, my dear?" A soft, hesitant voice emerged from behind her. Amelia turned, and her heart nearly stopped. It was a woman with gray hair, her eyes reflecting the pain of years of waiting. "I am Emily's mother," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Amelia felt a wave of empathy and sadness. "She was here, in this park, and I found this letter." The words came out in a whisper as she handed the paper to the woman. She wanted her story to be told. Emily's mother read the letter, and for a moment, the world around them disappeared. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked. "Thank you for bringing her memory back to light." Baxter, sensing the gravity of the moment, approached and rested his head on the woman's lap. She smiled through her tears, petting the dog as if he were a link between the past and the present. Amelia knew that this meeting was just the beginning of something much bigger, a connection that would transcend pain and loss, uniting their lives in a new purpose. Amelia was absorbed in reading the letter, Emily's words touching her heart in a way she had never imagined. The park, once a place of tranquility and meditation, now pulsed with a new energy, marked by pain and hope. The story of the missing girl had become an intrinsic part of Amelia's life, and each word she read seemed to echo in the silence around her. Suddenly, a shadow interrupted her concentration. Amelia looked up and saw a woman approaching, with an expression of determination, but also vulnerability. Her gray hair danced in the wind, and her eyes, though filled with sadness, shone with an intensity Amelia recognized immediately. It was Emily's mother. "You are Amelia, aren't you?" the woman asked, her voice trembling but firm. Amelia nodded, still surprised by the woman's presence. "Yes, it's me. I found a letter that Emily wrote. It talks about her dreams, about how she wanted to be remembered." The woman stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the letter Amelia held. "You have no idea how much this means to me," she said, her voice choked. "I always knew she hoped that one day someone would remember her." Amelia felt a tightness in her heart as she realized the pain the woman carried. "I'm so sorry for everything you went through," Amelia said sincerely. "I wish I had known Emily." "She was an amazing girl," the mother replied with a faint nostalgic smile. "Always full of life and dreams. I never gave up on finding her, and I always looked for her around every corner, in every park. But I never thought she could be so close." Amelia remembered the times she had explored the park with Baxter, as if the dog himself had sensed Emily's presence. "Baxter," Amelia began, pointing to the dog, who by then was sitting nearby as if he were paying attention to the conversation. "He has a special connection to Emily's story." Emily's mother crouched down to pet Baxter, who wagged his tail. "My dog also tried to help me find her," the woman said, tears in her eyes. "He would run around the house as if he were trying to show me the way." Amelia and Emily's mother shared a look of deep understanding. It was as if a bridge had been built between them, united by pain and loss. "I have something you might want to see," Emily's mother said, finally breaking the silence. "A journal that Emily kept during her last days. I found it among some of her things." Amelia felt a chill in her stomach at hearing this, but also a wave of hope. "Can we look at it together?" Amelia suggested, excitement growing in her chest. The woman nodded, and together they walked to a small bench under a leafy tree. Emily's mother took an old journal out of a bag she was carrying. "This is her journal," the mother said carefully. She wrote about her dreams, her hopes, and even about the fears that surrounded her. Amelia watched as the woman opened the journal. The pages were yellowed, and some lines were nearly illegible. But Emily's words jumped off the pages, revealing a world of vulnerability and strength. "One day, I want to be free to run through the fields and live without fear," Emily's mother read, her voice choked. "I hope someone knows what happened to me and that my story is not forgotten." Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she heard those words. Emily's pain and her struggle for freedom were now palpable. "Let's do something for her," Amelia said, determined. "We need to honor her memory and give a place to these untold stories." Emily's mother looked into Amelia's eyes, and for the first time, a genuine smile appeared on her face. "You're right. Let's create a memorial here in the park, a place where the stories of missing children can be remembered." With the help of Jessica, who approached upon hearing the conversation, the three women began planning the memorial. Together, they dreamed of giving a voice to the memories of Emily and so many other children, while Baxter watched, acknowledged as a true hero in the pursuit of justice and remembrance. So, what did you think of this story? Your opinion is essential for us to improve our content. Write what you thought in the comments and remember to subscribe and like this video. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next video.